All right.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to New York Music Month Extended Play, this discussion on the future of the digital music industry. We'll start in just a few minutes, but first we have greetings from our friend Shira Gans from the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment. Shira?
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Larry, for the introduction. Welcome, everybody, to today's New York Music Month Extended Play discussion. I'm excited to have everyone here and to kick this off. Music Month is a program that historically has happened every June. And this year in the pandemic, we've extended it. It's been going on since January. I'll put in the chat, you can check out all the different offerings we have. Everything's free, everything's virtual. And if you ever miss an event, you can log back on and check out the recordings. Pretty excited for today's discussion. Larry Miller and NYU have been a partner since the beginning of Music Month, and I'm really excited that he can be here today with Oana to talk about the future of the digital music industry. And I'm going to hand it back to Larry so the discussion can get started. Have a good time, everyone.
Thanks, Shira. And hey, everybody. So here we are. What a year. After a half dozen years of really unprecedented recent growth in recorded music, the global music business hit a once-in-a-century wall last March in the form of the global pandemic. Recorded music recovered quickly, and life was pretty good to pretty great in recorded music over this last year. Live music, of course, stopped entirely. Commercial radio and other forms of ad-supported music delivery just got kind of crushed. Physical music sales cratered as stores closed, but streaming quickly recovered and grew rapidly for the last 3 quarters of the year. Again, live streaming exploded by any measure. And COVID sort of accelerated a number of trends that were in place. We'll talk about many of those things over this next hour. Use of music-driven fitness apps, for example, grew dramatically, and we learned a lot from observing new uses for music in Metaverses. So things are looking up. On Friday, Variety included Oana Ruxandra in its roundup of music executives making an impact. Oana has played a key role in Warner Music Group's teaming up with technology companies and putting music into apps and presenting virtual experiences on Wave, Roblox, and much, much more. Oana said, rapidly evolving trends in technology and fan behavior are presenting massive opportunities for artists and songwriters. And we will be asking her about that and a lot of other stuff too. Oana is Chief Digital Officer and Executive Vice President of Business Development at Warner Music Group. Welcome, Oana.
Hey, Larry, thank you. Hey, everyone. Hope you're doing well today.
Oana, you have a pretty broad remit at Warner, and it's your job to make sure that for every artist that they have the right content on the right platform at the right time for the right audience. You've been at this a while now. How has that part of your job evolved?
Yeah, I've been at this for a while, definitely. We've known each other for a while too, Larry. It's great to see you. So my job and the reason that I'm in music is because my team exists to build value for artists and songwriters, and that underlies everything that we do. That's why I'm in music. That's why my team's in music, to ensure that artists and songwriters get value for their artistry and thrive, certainly survive in this great time right now when there's so many different opportunities. So that's fundamentally what what the team is about. It's broken up into a number of different pieces, but the team is focused on building stronger relationships with our major partners out there, the global players that you know the names of, the Apples, Spotify's, YouTube's, and Amazon's, all of which we have really strong relationships with and a consistent dialogue with, and are looking to build a strong and healthy ecosystem with for our artists and our songwriters. And then the piece we have been focusing on enduringly over the course of the last few years is the and what's next, what's coming with the all you can eat streaming. Where are other places that audience is looking? Where are other places that technology is moving? Let's make sure that we build the capabilities, expertise, and the product types for the audience and for these different technology changes. And so that's really what the impetus and the focus has been over the course of the past year. And as you said, and I say it, that quote I say fairly often, but all around us, these rapidly evolving trends in consumer behavior and in technology are just providing massive opportunity for labels, publishers, artists, songwriters. We've seen an enormous amount of change over the past year. I know it's been a difficult time in terms of kind of the one of the repercussions of COVID is that people have sat in front of their computer and spent far more time in this world of digital. And we've experienced a world in which there's been basically a digitization of everything. We're living in what is a new normal, and we expected that new normal to happen over the course of a couple of years. It's really the change that we've seen in the course of a year and a few months, certainly at the beginning of the pandemic, has speed lit, a lot of what we thought we would see over the course of the next 2 years. And so we're seeing things that we expected. The pace of that change has happened quite a bit faster, and it's actually quite exciting. In terms of numbers, just in the height of shelter in place, what we saw was daily time spent with digital media surging over 30% of what it had previously been certainly during shelter in place orders. Now that people are going outside a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more confident, given vaccines and other socially distanced methods. We're seeing that number go a little bit down, but there's still a sustained increase in digital media engagement. And ultimately, what we see is that the number of people that are enjoying music has never been greater. The ways in which they're enjoying music are multifold. There's exciting new business models emerging from every corner of the planet. My team has a global remit, and so we're looking everywhere and working with our colleagues on the local side to ensure that we understand trends across, Asia, LATAM, Europe, it's Africa, certainly. And so it's a dynamic ecosystem. But as you said, the key is to build value across new content types, product types, new partners, new models, and new audience. And that's really what we've been focused on.
So we are at an interesting place in the evolution of music discovery, consumption, monetization. Help us kind of glimpse over the horizon and paint a picture, if you can, for us what you think the near-term future will look like for digital music.
Yeah. So we talk a lot about what this future looks like. And I want to first say that we have very strong relationships with our traditional, all you can eat partners, and believe that what we're seeing is incremental to the massive subscriptions that they're driving. But ultimately, audience engagement and audience demand is changing based off of technology and what technology has done. Ultimately, the music industry, media industry, content types have moved and evolved based off of demands, based off of tech. There's songs and albums because that was the tech that was enabled a century ago through vinyl, through cassettes, and then that's transitioned into singles and in the kind of Napster download days, and now there's a real focus on UGC, on clippable content as well, and video rendered content. Visual is obviously a big part of what consumers are focused on in terms of music, and so we see content opportunities proliferating across multiple converging domains. And the dominant trends that we see in terms of digital media, I'll point to a future that is in entertainment, that is live, definitively. People are interacting live, one-to-one, interactive, and I can't begin to state interactive over and over again. Like, the focus is really there, whether it's commenting and liking on some of the robust social platforms, to really engaged, gamified interaction within the metaverses that we're seeing pop up. Interaction and that experience of engagement is really going to be a major part of digital music in the future. Go into then social, which obviously, if it's live and it's interactive, it's social. Especially when we've all been behind our computers and when we haven't had the benefit of seeing our friends and family in person. Social, digital, social, virtual has just become that much more important. And we're finding that that social experience, that interaction, is becoming important across all types of music consumption. And then you go into, well, how are people experiencing that social behavior? What we saw before and what we've experienced, most of us before, has been handle-based, anonymous interactions. We definitively see the world moving more into avatars, visual representatives of oneself, or the best version of oneself, or whatever one wants to put in front of people in this virtual world. And so, presenting yourself as a visual being is a big part of it. And then the kind of last piece on the trends is that anyone can be a creator, and experiences are driven by the community. It's a far more social, interactive place in which, yes, you're listening to music and experiencing music, but that experience is also driven by the other people, the other audience, the fans around you, and that makes the experience that much better. That all brings into light what I talk about fairly frequently, which is this, world of virtual spaces, world of metaverses, in which we're seeing, have massive growth and massive potential over the course of the next number of years. Metaverses are nascent; they're growing. They enable users with the ability to express themselves, their creativity, in ways that we've never really fathomed. Warner's artists, our audience, are already in these spaces. They're experimenting, they're adopting, and that rate of adoption is quickly accelerating. We absolutely think that this opportunity in, and again, just live, interactive, social, creator led experiences, this world of metaverses, is really boundless.
So over this past year, speaking of metaverses, Warner's made some pretty significant investments in those spaces, most notably Roblox, more recently, Wave, Genies. How do these investments in these platforms and these metaverses align with the vision that you were just describing?
Yeah. Uh, it's a holistic picture. We are actively focused on enabling artists and songwriters to engage with music fans across all of these new platforms in all of these different ways, right? If we believe that the future is driving to more interactive, live, social experiences, then we want to make sure that we have the capabilities, the partnerships, the best practices to enable our artists and our songwriters to reach their audience in on those platforms, and to make content that is native and feels authentic on those platforms. Uh, as I'm sure it won't be as much of a surprise, but in the gaming world, especially now, there's real reputational risk if you don't do the right thing, if it doesn't feel authentic, if it just feels like it was thrown up there for some random audience just to experience the space, or try. It feels a little exploitative, and that's not what we're focused on. We're focused on long-term engagement, long-term audience building, long-term capabilities building to enable our artists and our songwriters to understand and appreciate and then drive into these new areas. And with these investments, the goal is to get the right music product out there at the right time, to the right audience, on the right platform, all of the things that we want to focus on to make sure that it feels right to the audience. The Wave investment, the Roblox investment, our partnership with Genies is all aligned with that overall holistic effort of building these symbiotic relationships and partnerships. And I want to restate, it's definitively symbiotic. We are providing real value to the partners, and they're providing real value to us, and we're learning together, we're building together, and the goal is, and always is, to drive value for our artists and our songwriters, to ensure that they can experiment and build in the space.
For the uninitiated, or maybe I should say that for the ungamified among us, can you describe a couple of examples of some of the cool things that have happened over this last year on these platforms with Warner artists?
Sure. So over this past year, with Roblox, we had an event with Why Don't We and Royal Blood. The experiences were great. We spent an enormous amount of time building them, and that's one of the real things here in terms of building the symbiotic relationships. We're digging in deeply with these partners. We spend time thinking about who the right artist is, where the right audience is, how to build the visuals, obviously hand in hand with the artists and songwriters who are driving the visuals. So we are focused on working hand in hand over months long period to build really cool experiences that our artists and our songwriters will love, and that the audience will be really engaged with. And so it's definitively a very personal process at this point. And that's usually how new tech starts and new ways of engagement starts, right? It's one-offs in the beginning, and then the one-offs become more, and then they become more, and then you get to a certain level of scale. And we're definitely, again, that's why it's such an interesting place to be in right now, because it is, you're building these new business models, these new relationships, these new capabilities, and you're learning and you're building together. And again, that's one of the things that we're focused on here at Warner. It's making sure that we're there at the beginning, so that we can build the business models and the capabilities in the right way for the artists and songwriters, and that we're not just surprised with new tech and aren't subservient to new tech once it's already being built. And so that's a big part of it. There's going to, and especially with the Wave and the Roblox relationships, we're focused on some great shows, some great launch parties for new releases, album releases, that we think will be really exciting for our audience and the audience, our artists and songwriters audience over the course of the next 6 months. I think there'll be a lot of really exciting things that people are very into, or I know there are, but all of these things take handholding right now.
Sometimes I kid around when we're talking about what is in our immediate rear view mirror, when we think about some of the recent trends, and we have learned a little bit of a new vocabulary. We have some new acronyms that we talk about, or at least read about every day, and one of those is NFTs since January. And so can you talk a little bit about how NFTs will fit into the future of the digital music space that you've been describing?
Yeah. I don't know if you saw it, Larry. There was a great, cover article on New York Mag that was, "Spack my sponks" with NFTs, which I just thought was so clever. There's obviously, in the world of digital, and honestly with the market as well, there's just so many bubbles that pop up quickly and then start to die down a little bit, and that's really what we've seen with the NFT side. So let me just step back to say, NFTs are ultimately digital collectibles. They're ways in which people can experience and collect things, or audience can experience and collect things digitally. And that can be one-to-one on a platform, but it can also be through gaming and through metaverses, right? The skins that you buy for your avatars, whatever weapons, etc., that you buy in Fortnite, those are all digital goods, digital collectibles that represent real value to the audience and to artists. And so definitively, the world of NFTs is something that we find will be very valuable for our artists and our songwriters in the future. It is an evolving trend. And we know, we believe, and we know that our audience will be engaged with this evolving trend over the course of the next year, over the course of the next 2 years. In the short term, just like with a lot of different bubbles, NFTs, the NFT bubble was started, by crypto speculators that were looking to make real money in the short term. And many of them did. And it wasn't necessarily started by our artists and their songwriters' fans. And that's what we're really trying to be cognizant of. We're building and have built in this space. We have investment and a wonderful partnership with the Dapper Labs team that built NBA Top Shots, which is, behind a lot of the energy behind the NFT space, and have an enormous amount of respect for that team. But we're, again, building for the long term. There are real risks in the short term around the NFT space. If you're thinking short term, there's reputational risks. Again, if you're executing something that isn't authentic, that doesn't feel right to the audience, then the audience can be frustrated. It can feel exploitative. There's obviously still environmental risks that we have to manage for, that we have to account for and actually understand as well. And then just when there's tickets or crypto speculators, there's going to be a group of crypto scalpers also that look to sell back to our artists and our songwriters audience and their fans for high prices. And so we have to manage the timing, the build, the engagement in the right way, because we absolutely think that the world of NFTs and the world of, again, digital goods and collectibles is going to be big for artists and songwriters. Our goal is to ensure that we're not, and this is kind of we're not like focused on the short term at the risk of losing the long term. And that can often happen if you drop something that feels exploitative, you lose audience. If you don't do the right thing by your artists and your songwriters, you lose their interest. And again, we're really focused on building the right capabilities, building for the long term, experimenting right now, and building best practices. And as I'm sure you've seen, there's been a number of different bubbles since the NFT bubble, and that one's going down, and that will deflate. But ultimately, it's still very important to us, and we're building for it. Our goal was not to just chase the short-term cash, because that's really not what we're focused on.
So if we think about NFTs broadly as really any form of digital collectible, then if I can ask you, this question in terms of, how to think about it, then whatever the passing fad is, it would seem that, NFTs are here to stay, question mark?
Yes, definitely. They are a way in which to engage fans and audience, and in new ways in this digital world. If the world is interactive, if the world that we see in the future is interactive, it's social, it's avatar based, it's a place where creators can build the experiences, and you're interacting with other fans to build experiences. You want to personalize those experiences with digital goods and digital collectibles. Those will provide real value in the future. Today, again, people are experimenting. But the hundreds of millions of dollars that you were seeing for a short term was really about a world of crypto speculators, and it wasn't about the audience. And again, we're focused on driving that audience.
Got it. Is that a Peloton bike behind you?
It is, yeah.
Many of us understand how important music is for Peloton and for other fitness apps, and at least we understand it reasonably well today. What's coming in terms of music and fitness apps?
One of the key things that changed over the course of the last year was the way in which people worked out, exercised, but meditated as well, created calmness and calm energy. There's certainly a number of apps that are building into the wellness space and the health space. And so that area is going to be a key area of growth for the music business. And our partnerships in that space are inherent to that growth. I don't know, Larry, what you jumped on, but as soon as the lockdown happened, it was either start drinking a ton and like not work out ever, or start working out and
or both.
Yeah, or both, right? And trying to keep some sanity that way. And that's thankfully the way that I went. The fitness space, and again, the wellness space, is really a burgeoning space for growth. It's one of the biggest trends. We expect revenue across the board in fitness and digital fitness to surpass 23 billion, I think was the number. It did surpass 23 billion in 2020, and now we expect it to, be higher by multifold. COVID has definitively accelerated consumer adoption of at-home workouts, and there's countless fitness companies coming through. We're experimenting with so many different opportunities, whether it's hardware based. There's obviously app based and watch based, and certainly have a strong partnership with the watch companies out there. Apple Fitness being, Plus being one of the coolest fitness apps that I've seen out in market. But then there's also some really cool experimentation going on in the immersive world, and then the virtual reality world. One of the things that I've been really excited about is the world of virtual reality working out. When we think about just the future and we think about metaverses, a lot of the things that we do, we experience and we will experience will be gamified. And what virtual reality does really well is gamify those fitness experiences. And so we have a number of partnerships with really interesting fitness companies that are experimenting in that space, that just keep you working out. I mean, they've been really, really interesting to experiment with, and really interesting to work on partnerships with.
Tomorrow's Robloxes and Waves and Spotify's are today's startups. What's Warner doing to engage the startup community?
We're certainly working through a number of different opportunities. Our focus has been on uh, three things. Enabling content. So that's one of the main things. Enabling content, enabling access, enabling time and energy, and then enabling money. So a kind of three-pronged approach to our startups community. We are definitively arms open here at Warner. We're focused on ensuring that the startup community, which has heretofore really had, suboptimal opportunity or suboptimal options, they could come and negotiate, which can be costly, and myself and a team of negotiators will be negotiating to find the best value for artists and songwriters. They can pirate and infringe, which certainly we don't want to do, or they can just not use music, which often has happened, or not use major label music, major publisher music, instead really focus on production music. And those are not great choices. And so Warner has been focused on being open arms to the entrepreneurial community, again, through spending time, spending money, and then also giving early access to content. We helped to build an app and launch an app called Adapter that was released in January. Adapter is essentially an API-based solution for licenses, easy click-through licenses. So startups can go through, they share a certain amount of data, they share a certain amount of value, and then they get easy access to Warner's library of content. We're also looking to engage other partners, or the other music labels, other music publishers, to make sure that it's all holistic. We definitely want to be working with our colleagues at the other different labels, and we already have some of them in. And so one-stop click-through license for access to content for a certain level of startup. They share data with us so that we understand and can stay on top of the trends. We build relationships with them. Generally, they can experiment with music in the ways that they see fit so that we can build a healthy ecosystem. And obviously, we can stay on top of the trends that way as well. I mean, it's really a win-win. I can't tell you how difficult launching something like this can be in the music industry, because there's a lot of, sometimes antiquated law, but it was a labor of love. The platform, again, is called Adapter, and it's doing really well. And I'm really excited to engage the entrepreneurial community with tools like Adapter to ensure that they have other options besides, infringing, spending an enormous amount of money, or just not using music.
Well, it's and long overdue, I might add, and not easily done. So, kudos to you and the team for getting that done.
Thank you.
A note to the audience, we are super interested in your questions. There are a few that have come through so far. Let me ask one that came from an audience member, and it was specifically about artists and songwriters who don't have the resources to really cover the waterfront and evaluate, which technology partnerships are really worth their time to engage with. What would you say to that community in in terms of what your organization is doing and how you can engage with them, and in what context you're already engaging with them.
Yeah. The COVID has obviously accelerated an enormous number of things. It's also accelerated opportunity, and there are a number of startups and entrepreneurs coming out in a lot of different spaces. When the bubble was happening, or kind of still continuing around NFTs, I'm sure that a lot of artists and songwriters were just getting inundated by incoming, right? I can build an NFT or mint an NFT for you. I can do this. And that's true of certainly what my team feels. I'm sure what a lot of people feel. It's hard to know who the right partner is. It's hard to understand what's real and what's not. And I understand that that can be difficult. That's ultimately why my team is here and what we're building for. We're here to vet the partners to make sure that they are the right ones, depending on how we define right ones, and to ensure that when an artist or a songwriter comes to us to ask, or that we, and most often we try to go proactively to the artist and the songwriter and say, hey, this could be really cool, that we have a list of partnerships that they can easily jack into, take advantage of, that will enable them. And it's time consuming to understand what each partner is doing. I'll also say that the music content's incredibly important. So you have to ensure that there's safety on the platform, that the content isn't just going to get out into the ecosphere before you've released it or something, right? And have leaks. And so we vet the tech behind the product and platform. We vet the team. We spend time and energy with them. The creative we talk through with them as well. And so there's real time and energy spent with each one of the partners to understand kind of who's best in class, and then to partner and facilitate really easy conversation. Just for those of you out there that aren't signed to Warner, I would suggest that you have a key set of questions that you're asking each of the partners, and make sure that you're assessing based off of unbiased understanding of each one of those questions. Make sure that there's some real tech questions in there so that you understand what's underlying their platform, and then make sure that the creative lines up with your vision and your narrative so that it feels authentic in the way that you're building, that the timing is right, that the resources and their willingness to put time and energy behind you is there as well. But make sure you've kind of got like a list of key questions that you continue to ask so that you can assess across the board.
We have another question from an audience member. We haven't spoken much about live streaming in this conversation. Just, a huge year for the acceleration of live streaming. The question is about sustainability as the world comes back and everybody gets out on the road, and as music fans get comfortable once again with going out and being with other people. Is this live streaming growth going to stick around, or will this have been a thing that happened?
Yeah, so yes, live streaming is here to stay, but live streaming can be a lot of different things, right? Like 2D live streaming, in which you have a show in front of you that you could also see in person, that experience. If you can't get to that show, or whatever, is one kind of form. And then there's the immersive live, and the work and energy, and brilliant creativity that companies like Wave put behind their experiences. And so when I think about live, I lean more towards that vision of the future. I think that digital and virtual live performances that offer people different types of experiences and enhanced experiences versus the IRL experiences are definitively here to stay. And again, that world of virtual and live, in which people are helping to create experiences by being in this live space, and you're avatar based, and you're interactive, like that's a burgeoning space that definitively will continue to be to accelerate. And so the point of the experience, right, is to make it valuable and more valuable than or additionally valuable to audience, in conjunction with those live performances. I know a lot of people are really excited for the IRL experience. I want to go to shows too. I can't tell you how much I've missed seeing live music over this past year, and I know a lot of people feel the same. I have a friend that saw a live artist, just a couple of or a month ago, and started crying. So it's an experience that people miss. The virtual and digital needs to provide something in addition to stay, and people and companies are doing that, and people are seeing that. And so whether you can't go to the show and you're watching the 2D live, or you're so excited by this new audience interactive experience, I think that there's real growth there. But it has to feel valuable. It has to feel right. It can't, just be, taping and you're watching the show, but you're in New York and you could actually go see it. Like, that's not necessarily going to be where it ends, or it won't be where it ends. It's going to be something really interesting and exciting.
We, watch the news and monitor our news feeds, and there has been, of course, heartbreaking news coming out of India over this last several weeks in particular. It's horrific to watch, and yet there is great opportunity for growth in that part of the world. And we know that Warner has prioritized India as an important market for development. And I imagine that you've been observing some new developments coming out of that part of the world that we may not have seen here yet. What's exciting that's happening in South Asia that we should at least start to think about?
So first, I'll just say hi to my colleagues in India. I hope you're safe and well. It's been really tough, obviously, to watch from afar. India is a real opportunity. Let me just back up and say the really great thing about music, and what's really interesting about music, is that it can touch people globally and also locally. And one of the really important things about major labels and major publishers is that we have offices across the board in all of these different countries to ensure that we understand the trends, to ensure that we understand and are sitting in the area that is evolving. The markets in Southeast Asia are just evolving so quickly and essentially untapped right now. And not just there, but obviously across Asia and some of LATAM as well. And Africa obviously is such a big opportunity for growth. We see tremendous opportunity. One of the things that's really exciting is all of the really local repertoire that is coming from and dialect-based repertoire that's coming from some of these countries. Really interesting types of different genres and dialects, and so that growth is one of the real areas that we believe will create exponential value for artists and songwriters. I can't, say that enough. It's these markets that have such rich music, such rich culture around music, are building real opportunity and real value in the digital space, and we're learning so much and experimenting so much. It's really untapped right now. how big the value really is. And as you said, Warner's built an office there, has strong connections there, and are partnering with a lot of different local labels, a lot of different local DSPs, platforms, as well as global ones, to ensure that we build real, rich, dynamic market competitive ecosystems within these different territories, and that we understand, right? A lot of the world is very US centric, New York centric, and I live in New York. Our goal is to ensure that we're understanding and learning, not going in and saying this is it. That's the exact opposite of what we need to be doing.
We haven't talked much about what we might call traditional on-demand streaming. The Spotify's of the world, Apple Music's, the Deezers and Amazons, and so on. And as the ecosystem evolves and we find new ways of, discovering and consuming and sharing and experiencing music, what place do you think traditional on-demand streaming platforms will have in that future?
Absolutely a place. Technology is always changing, and the way that people interact with music is always changing. And again, I mentioned it before, but there are vinyl, CDs, downloads, streaming. The music industry is constantly changing, and the way in which we adapt to the technology shifts needs to be quick and needs to be agile. To think that this world of $10 and ad supported is the end all be all of music consumption is fairly arrogant. The music world will change again. There will be new opportunities, and there are new opportunities, and again, that's what we've been talking about this whole time. But that doesn't discount how important the traditional streaming world is. Our partners within those spaces are the strongest partners that we have, and have been helping us to build these markets for a long time, and have been enabling this new type of technology. And so these platforms with these global partners provide real stability to the market, provide a platform from which there's growth and opportunity across the board. And so I absolutely see the growth that we see today as incremental to the world of traditional streaming, and those partners are just as important as they have been for some time.
And thinking about, if we may, a return to normalcy in the back half of this year, thinking ahead to 2022, where there is so much live music to go see that we just can't even make a decision on any night of the week, and beyond. What are you most excited about, assuming the pandemic runs its course, and that we are able to all go out and be together in some of the old music experiences that we love, and many of the new ones that you've been describing?
Yeah. This is maybe a cop out of an answer, but it's that holistic picture, right? It's that so many people are experiencing music and experimenting with music, and the ways in which they're experimenting have never been greater. The ways in which they are listening have never been greater, whether it's through your AirPods while you're walking down the street, or it's playing Fortnite or Roblox on your TVs, or last night, I was playing my Switch through the night, and music can proliferate across all of those different experiences. It can create social balance, it can create social interaction, and that's what's really exciting. It's that opportunity to engage with new opportunities while there's a healthy, robust ecosystem that's underlying those new opportunities, so that we can drive and develop new sources of revenue and value for our artists and songwriters. Listen, the industry is definitively, it's far from perfect. We've got an enormous amount of work to do to get us to a place where we are enabling artists to thrive across the board, and we're committed to that betterment. We have a real cohesive vision here at Warner about how we drive to the future, and we're working, every day. It's not this future vision and then we just jump there. It's step by step, working every day, learning with humility, which is incredibly important, and then getting to that future over a series of steps, roadmaps, etc. We're driving fundamentally, constantly forward.
Learning with humility. I love that.
Larry, I've always wanted to ask you, especially now, how has the music business education evolved to prepare students for music industry jobs that in many cases, don't exist yet?
Oh, yeah. I love this question. Pandemic notwithstanding, because we could spend the rest of the afternoon just talking about what that has been like, and I think the results have been good in most cases. But over the last 10 years or so of running a music business program at NYU for both undergraduate students and graduate students, that one of the things that we noticed really early on was that we were turning out, like many great colleges and university programs around the United States and around the world, great, bright, highly motivated young people, passionate about music, in many cases so consumed about making a dent in the music universe that they literally can't imagine taking a breath in the early stages of their professional career, not being utterly engaged in it, But one of the things that we noticed was that although we were turning out many graduates like the ones that I just described, that as streaming in particular started to take hold about half dozen or so years ago, that we thought that it would be great if all of our students were not just numerically literate, in addition to all of the other great traits that many of them share, but that they graduated understanding the tools and processes and frameworks that have been developed in data science and were now being applied in the music industry as ways to solve everyday problems in almost every context in music, whether we're talking about A&R or how to route a tour, or just how to allocate resources across a number of possible choices. And I think that although we have a long way to go, that we've made great progress in training all of our students how to do exactly that, use the tools and frameworks and technologies that exist today to help make better decisions, whatever it is that they're going to go do in the music industry. And so we have begun doing that and made it required in our programs, and we'll be doing much more of that in the future, hopefully in a way that will give our students and anyone else listening who may be going to school someplace else, really an unfair competitive advantage for the very best internships and jobs that exist. So that's my goal, and we're going to keep doing that.
I think that education and that you know, and it's certainly in my world as well, ensuring that people are educated, that there's transparency and the tools of the trade and the way in which value and revenue are driven. That's so important. So thank you, Larry, for doing all of that. It sounds great.
Great, thanks for asking the question. So a final note to the audience, we tried to get to as many of your questions as possible. There were a couple that we were unable to get to. Thank you for asking though, and we hope that you'll accept our apology for not getting to every single one. But thank you for asking them. Oana, thank you for being here today. Everybody else out there in Zoom land, thank you all for spending this hour with us today. We appreciate it. And Shira, thank you and everybody from the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment for putting on this event.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Shira. Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.